Hello, 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 y'all. Hello. I'm running, slow. I'm running really slow today, but I am here. I am here. And this is the petty politic. So you guys see the moniker. You all see the tagline. Please come in, like, share, and subscribe. I appreciate all of you guys showing up here. I appreciate all of you guys that show up. Hey, Rain, how you doing? So y'all see the moniker. So this is about the MAGA lie. The MAGA lie. What has always fascinated me the most about MAGA is how they pride themselves on being able to spot the fake news, the establishment phonies, yet be so completely and utterly blind to a textbook case of political shape-shifting is happening right in front of their eyes when it comes to the obsession with JD Vance. JD Vance is a shapeshifter. Every time I hear MAGA folks talk about JD Vance, they treat him like he's inevitable. They talk about him like he's the second coming of the populist revolution, the heir to the throne, the future of the country. But let's stop playing nice and look at the reality. Based on what? Why would he be the heir to the throne? Based on what? The MAGA base is being conned by this slick Ivy League educated corporate suit who was reading from a script he didn't believe in until it became professionally profitable. Inside conservative circles, he's treated like a superstar because he's young, articulate, and willing to say the meanest things necessary to get applause on television. But let's call it what it is. It's an act. I'm letting you know that JD Vance is an act. He is a put together cardboard person. It's a performance. It's a calculated, body snatching demeanor from a guy who went to Yale Law School, worked as a Silicon Valley venture capitalist, and is now trying to sell himself as a raw, unfiltered Rust Belt populist. Donald Trump, whether you love him or you hate him, has a raw, unscripted gravity. When Trump rants, it's authentic to who he is. When JD rants, it feels like a rehearsed corporate presentation about anger. JD Vance is trying to sell himself as a blue-collar worker, a blue-collar populist, but a lot of people are not buying it. He spends most of his time talking to people who already agree with him, while everybody else is sitting there on the sidelines wondering whether this is the real JD or just another political character he's decided that he's going to play. The MAGA party is confusing with their enthusiasm. They feel as though the enthusiasm that they have and his electability is the same thing as loyalty and popularity. They've mistaken their own echo chamber for the country. And the country is waking up to the fact that they are being asked to buy into a counterfeit empty suit. Now let's dismantle the biggest myth out there about JD Vance having an honest change of heart. Every time somebody tells me this man is the future of the conservative party, I find myself asking, Which version of JD Vance are we talking about? Because this is the same man who privately wondered if Donald Trump was America's Hitler. This is the same man who publicly called Trump a cultural heroine and a noxious elixir. Now, he's standing on stage as the vice president of the United States, nodding along to every word that Donald Trump says. Let's listen to how he tries to slide out of the massive contradiction when he was on the View with the ladies from the View.
President JD Vance, Sarah, you got the question.
Yes, Mr. Vice President, in your new book, Communion, you write about your personal evolution with faith from evangelical to atheist to Catholic convert. And you also explain your evolution similarly on Trump, from calling him America's Hitler to America's best hope. Now, as someone who has admitted to chasing ambition, which you write about in the book in the past, but now says your faith brought you back to your priorities, I have to kind of use your own words that sit with me from 2016.
Sure.
Fellow Christians, everyone is watching when we apologize for this man. Lord help us. And I think about that all the time because as a fellow Christian, that is something that weighs on my heart as I watch this country and the leadership at the top, because it's also something I have to explain to my kids, which I know we also share, this idea that our greatest privilege and responsibility are these young people we're raising.
Of course.
So help me find the words to explain to my children what they're witnessing right now.
Well, you know, first of all, it's been well covered that I was a critic of Donald Trump back in 2015 and 2016. Now, obviously, I'm sitting here as the Vice President of the United States in the Trump administration. Well, Joy, a little humility, actually. I think that when you make predictions and those predictions turn out to be false, you got to ask yourself, well, what made me wrong about that? What did I not understand or not appreciate? For example, I said that Donald Trump's economic policies would not lead to wage growth. They did in the first term. That was actually a major thing. I said that we couldn't bring back any of those factory jobs because I kind of had given into this idea that those jobs were disappearing. But actually, Donald Trump, you saw a manufacturing boom during that administration. So there's a certain point. Let me just so there's a certain point where you say, you know, I made predictions about this. I ended up being wrong. Yeah. And in politics and anything, I think it's important to just say, you know what? I got some things wrong, and I was wrong about him.
See, that's the thing. That's the thing. He said he got it wrong. He says he saw policies work. But let's stop giving him the benefit of the doubt, shall we? You don't go from privately comparing a man to Hitler to publicly kissing his ring just because you liked a couple of judicial appointments or a tax cut. That isn't a crisis of conscience. It's a calculation of convenience. It's the behavior of a slick liar who figured out exactly what script he needed to read to inherit an empire. But the contradictions don't stop with his sudden worship of Donald Trump. They run straight through his entire personal identity. Vance has built his entire current brand on aggressive, hardline, cultural war identity politics. He draws sharp exclusionary lines about who belongs to America and who doesn't belong to America, yet look at the reality of his own life. This is about the transgender dynamic. He goes on cable news to denigrate transgender individuals and fuel moral panics, completely burying the fact that in his own youth, he explored his own identity, openly questioned his sexuality at one point, and even cross-dressed in photos that have circulated widely. There's nothing wrong with a young person figuring out who they are, but there is everything wrong with a grown man pulling up the ladder behind himself and demonizing vulnerable children just to score political points with an angry base. This anti-immigrant rhetoric, he rails against immigration and uses rhetoric that treats other ethnicities as a threat to the fabric of this country. Yet he is married to Usha, the daughter of Indian immigrants, and has a beautifully mixed family. How do you square a hardline, border slamming, ethno-nationalist platform with the reality of your own household. It makes you question how sincere he has to actually be about the policies that he champions. Is he genuinely invested in these extreme ideologies, or is he comfortable insulated by his money and his status, treating his own family as an exception while selling out everybody else to fire up the base? This is why JD Vance struggles to connect with anybody outside of hardcore MAGA. There's a deep, hollow, polished quality to that man that makes voters look at him and feel like they're being conned, scammed. You may not like traditional establishment politicians, but at least you know what they stand for. With JD Vance, you're looking at a political chameleon who changes color depending on which donor or voting bloc is holding the flashlight. And this is where I think the real problem begins with JD Vance and his politics. Because once you get past all the talk about whether JD Vance is authentic or not, you eventually have to ask a much bigger question. What exactly is JD Vance selling to everybody? JD Vance, to me, seems like the type of person that calls himself a Republican, and then he gets into the White House and he starts doing Democratic things. Universal health care, free college, tax cuts, fair tax trade, raising the minimum wage. JD Vance seems to be that type of politician. He comes across as a Republican, but in order to win votes from the Democrats, in order to win votes, he will run towards all the things that the Democrats say we need in this country, and he'll try to implement those things when he's president so he can be a two-term president. See, that's how smarmy JD Vance is. Okay? What is he selling? What is the vision that he has? What is the message that's supposed to make somebody who isn't already a Republican say, you know what, I want to be a part of that? Because when I listen to JD Vance, I keep hearing the same pattern over and over again. Somebody else is to blame. Somebody is always responsible for what's gone wrong, but never me. Somebody is always the person that we got to blame. Okay? It's the immigrants. It's the universities, media, elites, cities. It's always somebody else. It's never anybody in this White House. I believe that's exactly what he's going to do. He's going to turn into a Democrat when he becomes president so that he becomes popular. Or when he's running for president, he's going to start talking like a Democrat. Okay? Now, don't get me wrong. There are real problems in this country. I get that. There are institutions that have failed people. I get that. There are corporations that have gutted communities. There are politicians who have lied to us. There are plenty of reasons to be frustrated. But eventually, a movement has to offer something more than frustration and grievances. Eventually, it has to tell people where it's trying to take the country. And that's where I think JD Vance struggles a lot, because much of his political identity seems built around grievance and problems. Let me play this clip.
About immigration at length in this book.
Sure.
And I believe as a Christian,
sorry,
I tell
guys.
my kids why
Hold
it's
on.
important to have borders.
Hold on. Let me move this. Hold on. Here we go.
There are laws, there are resources. I get all that things. It's much harder to explain when I see someone dragged out of a house or wrongly taken to a thing that isn't a violent criminal. It's a little more nuanced as a parent to try to say when someone's referred to as vermin or scum, when I teach them in school about people that have done that before, but this is different. It's very hard as a parent and a Christian to say both things.
And you actually
Right. Let me play this other one.
about people. What did Black people do to this administration that has allowed it to really stigmatize folks of color.
They say in the book, you talk about this. You talk about this struggle, this internal struggle in the book, and you talk about moral trade-offs that result in favoring a strict migration policy without dehumanizing anyone. But listen, over 50 people have died in ICE custody. There are thousands of children, 6,200, that are being held in places like Dilley Detention Center. The people that have visited those detention centers, I don't know if you have, talk about the subhuman, infrahuman conditions, the lack of clean water, the lack of medical attention, the lack of education. I would urge you as a Christian and as a father to visit those detention centers where the children are being held and make sure that the conditions are up to the values that we hold in this country.
So you guys have thrown a lot at me, and I see we got 30 seconds left here. But let me say,
You're
number
the Vice
one,
President. You can go long.
I'd like to pick up on this theme because I think it's really important. We do have to strike a balance, of course, between enforcing our laws. We don't want to dehumanize people. That is the balance that, look, law enforcement, what I'd say about this, law enforcement is always inherently not a very pretty process, especially when you're dealing sometimes with violent people, with people who are resisting arrest. Some of the people that I've been told by the media were completely peaceful, had never violated any laws. You actually look into the record and you find out that those people were actually being violent, or they did have a criminal record. They had a sex trafficking conviction.
Don't have criminal records. The majority of people that ICE is rounding up and taking out of their homes from their families, they're separating families. They're using children as bait.
But
the majority are not criminals.
But can I respond to that, guys? Let me just say this. Okay. So you talk about the children. Here's what I'd say. Do we know that during the last administration, we had tens of thousands of children who were sex trafficked by the cartels, who were brought into our country in profoundly dangerous and predatory conditions?
Let's talk about this administration.
But here's the point. Unless you enforce the border, you invite that kind of conduct.
See, and this is what I don't respect about this administration. They don't want to take accountability at all. And JD Vance is very good at this. Okay. This is another place where I think JD Vance runs into serious trouble nationally with other groups. Not because Americans can't agree or disagree on immigration. Of course we can. We've been debating immigration for generations. What I find troubling is how often the conversation is framed around fear. Fear of newcomers, fear of crime, fear of cultural change, fear of people who are different. And here's a question I keep coming back to. How does JD Vance square that message with his own life, with his own wife being Indian? This is a man married to the daughter of Indian immigrants. I've seen the commentary from white folks talking about they eat dirt, or they eat shit, or they eat on the floor, or they eat with their feet, or blah, blah, blah. I've seen the comments that the people have made about his wife. His children come from a rich, diverse family background. So when I hear some of the hardline rhetoric that he says, I find myself wondering, what lessons are people supposed to take from this garbage? Because if immigration has been such a threat to America, then somebody needs to explain why it wasn't a threat when it came to his own family, his own in-laws, his own brother-in-laws or sister-in-laws or whatever. Help me understand that, okay? Help me understand where that line is that all immigrants, most immigrants are an issue or problem, but not your family and you're married to an immigrant or a person who had an immigrant or people who had your daughter, your wife. Help me understand that, how he squares that, okay? Because that's where people start questioning his sincerity. At least I do. Not because they disagree with the policy, but because the message doesn't seem to match what he's saying. Yeah. And I think that's a challenge JD Vance has never really fully answered. The same thing happens when the conversation turns to race and minority communities. So Whoopi had to get on top of it.
And you know how hard it is. You have folks of color in your family.
Sure.
So when you see, things, the Emmett Till stuff coming down, or them doing all kinds of removal of information of Black heroes. How does that sit with you?
Well, what exactly are you talking about, Whoopi? Because you just,
I'm talking
I know
about
Emmett Till was,
I can tell you all this. Yeah.
No, I want to know what she's.
You don't know what I'm talking about.
Actual point.
So in a lot of the museums, there's so many. You know, where they're taking down the actual history that happened.
Nobody knows jack shit, Stuart, 2004. Nobody knows anything. You guys are the smartest people in the room, yet you guys got us where we are in this country. Nobody knows anything but you, Stuart, 2024, 04. Nobody's smart as you.
In this country, slavery happened. All kinds of stuff happened. And it seems that it has been very easy for this administration to remove that, and also to denigrate Black folks who have worked their behinds off to get this American dream. How do you, I mean, you know that.
So Sonny, that was actually a very helpful intervention, because I think the story you're talking about is where, you know, allegedly the administration is holding back the appointments of people based on skin color.
I'm talking about a host of things. I'm talking about Black history getting erased from public spaces. Black voter districts are being dismantled. Black leaders are being sidelined from our ranks. Where do Americans of color fit in this vision? Because it doesn't seem like we fit.
I think, Sonny, my view.
And if I may, since October of last year, there's been something like 6,668 refugees allowed into the country. All but 3 were white South Africans.
So first of all, I'm very skeptical of that number, because we have a lot of different immigration pathways.
No, that number is correct. It's been 6,000 let in, and the 6,000 of them are South African refugees. We get that. Listen carefully to what he says. Then ask yourself a simple question about this. Does this sound like somebody trying to expand a coalition? They're not trying to expand the coalition, okay? They're not trying to expand and bring people into the Republican Party. They're not trying to expand the party. That's the problem. Or does this sound like somebody who's doing mostly the talking and having people agree with him? He doesn't have people agreeing with him on the show. So the whole point is, you're trying to expand the electorate for you. He's trying to expand his popularity. We can see the insincerity of this person. He'll say things like he's not apologizing for being white, as if Black people, Latino people, or any person of color is demanding an apology for his skin color. That is that white victim shit. That white victim shit. That's not serious policy discussion. That's a classic dog whistle. It's racial grievances politics dressed up as courage. It's designed to make white voters feel attacked while pretending he's just telling the truth. That kind of rhetoric doesn't build bridges between races and coalitions and people. Okay? It builds walls. Because that's the difference between movement politics and national politics. A movement can survive on loyalty. A president needs something bigger than loyalty. A president needs trust. And one of the things I learned over the years is that people can usually tell when somebody is speaking from real conviction and when somebody is speaking from calculation. They may not always be right, but voters trust their instinct. I believe JD Vance is speaking from calculation. And right now, a lot of voters looking at JD Vance and see a man who spends more time managing political branding than building a real national coalition. He's not pulling in any of that coalition that he needs to win an election. All of us on the left see him as fake. That's why I keep coming back to the same concern. Not whether JD Vance can excite MAGA. Who gives a fuck about MAGA? MAGA is only about 20% of the fucking the electorate. They have nobody's trying to join MAGA. We already know he can get MAGA. Y'all voted for Donald Trump. The real question is whether he can persuade people who aren't already standing in the crowd, because that's the test every future president eventually has to pass. Okay. Which brings us to the ultimate delusion gripping the MAGA party right now. The belief that JD Vance can actually win a national election on his own. Inside the MAGA echo chamber, they look at Vance and see a masterpiece. They see a sharp, aggressive young guy who's fiercely loyal to Donald Trump. They see him getting standing ovations at closed-door conservative events. And they think, yeah, America's ready for this JD Vance. The keys to the kingdom are his for the taking. But they're completely forgetting one very important thing. The empire, this MAGA empire has shrunk, and is shrinking by the day. Donald Trump had a very, very specific, once-in-a-generation kind of magic. Love that man or hate that man. Trump pulled in people who normally didn't vote. He had that raw, unscripted celebrity energy that connected with folks who felt forgotten. JD Vance has none of that gravity. Not one of that piece of gravity. Okay? Vance doesn't have the star power to bring new people into the fold. All he has is the ability to repeat the lines he was taught. He's a good actor reading a good script. Presidential elections are not decided by the people who already are wearing the hats. They're decided by the millions of Americans who are exhausted by all the fighting. They're decided by the suburban mom who voted Republican one cycle and Democrat the next. They're deciding by the moderate independent who doesn't trust either party. They're decided by the swing voters who wake up every morning trying to live their life, not looking for the next enemy to fight. The people who are going to decide this election are neither Republican or Democrat. Those people want someone who can lower the temperature, someone who can make them feel like the country is not falling apart at the seams. And what does JD Vance do? He pours gasoline on the fire. Don't get it twisted. Democrats ain't flipping, not this time. I'm sorry. Sorry, Looking Glass. You mean Republicans are flipping. Otherwise, we wouldn't be having the wave. They wouldn't be having the wave of wins across the country if Democrats were flipping. Okay? Okay? Democrats are not flipping. It's the Republicans that are flipping or either staying home. Get your facts right. Okay? JD Vance is built entirely on conflict. Everything is conflict. Everything is a problem. Everything is an issue. The media fight, the culture war fight, the university fight, the elite fight. It's nonstop, exhausting theater with this man. Let's look at the hard truth of where we are right now. Where are we at right now? Right now, damn near Democrats are winning across the board. Okay, sure. MSNBC, yeah, they have me quacking up. That makes sense. Nobody's flipping. Yeah, they're digging in. You're right. And the independents are seeing the economy. And the independents are seeing us at war. And the independents are seeing the shit show that this president has presented. And the shit show that JD Vance keeps defending. So, yes, people are dinging in. And I kind of think we're winning. And a lot of people voted for this administration hoping for a real change of direction. Some of these people voted for Trump because they simply couldn't stand the alternative. They thought many things would get better. They thought many things, maybe the chaos would calm down. They took a chance on Donald Trump. Now, a massive portion of the country, including a big chunk of Republicans, are waking up with serious buyer's remorse. They're looking around and saying, this is it? This is what we signed up for? We thought we were going to get better by voting for Trump? Most of the people that voted for Trump are disappointed. They're tired. They're realizing the constant drama is not sustainable. Okay? And what does JD Vance represent to those exhausted voters? He represents the same thing. He doesn't represent a course correction. He doesn't represent sanity. He represents doubling down on the absolute worst, most degenerative instincts of this movement. Except now it's wrapped in a much smarter, more calculating Ivy League package. He's going to do and keep us in wars, keep us fighting, keep us infighting, keep us on the same destructive path. Nobody can look at what's happening in the country and say they want to continue to keep going the same way that they're going. Nobody can say that this economy is good for them. Nobody. Okay. Sure, I'm gaslighting. Sure, Stuart, I'm gaslighting. But that's all people got to do is figure out whether they can afford a car, afford a house, pay for groceries. If you can't find any of these, you can't afford any of these things, and you're having a problem, affording anything, then I'm right. Stuart 2004, you live in Delulu land. You're delusional. But I am assuming most MAGA are delusional. If you think your coalition is growing, if you think MAGA and Republicans, see, the MAGA and the Republicans are not the same thing. First of all, let's be clear. The MAGA and the Republicans are not the same thing. You MAGA are not conservatives. You're not the real Republicans. You're just MAGA. The real Republicans understand that we're on a destructive path. And the real Republicans are standing back saying, we're not going to deal with this president anymore. Yes, there's a big distinction. MAGA are the goofy ones that are riding with Donald Trump down that chute, down that hill, down that rabbit hole that nobody wants to go. Regular, ordinary Republicans who understand what's going on are saying, oh, hell no, we didn't vote to get into this war. We didn't vote to get into this war. We didn't vote to not have any money domestically. We did not vote to get embarrassed on the national stage. We did not vote for that. There's a big difference between MAGA and the regular Republicans. Okay, don't get it twisted. MAGA ain't the same thing as regular Republicans now. MAGA ain't the same thing. No, it ain't. Everything is not cheaper now that it was under Biden. Stop lying, Jerry. Stop lying. Y'all love to lie about what was going on with Biden. Stop lying. Okay. Trump's flaws were loud and out in the open. Vance's flaws are engineered. He's colder. He's sharper. He's much better at lying. Okay. He knows exactly what he's doing. That doesn't make him the future of the Republican Party. That makes him incredibly dangerous and profoundly unelectable. The MAGA Party has convinced themselves that loyalty equals popularity. No, it doesn't. They've mistaken their own internal enthusiasm for national consensus. But the country is always bigger than its bubble. Okay? When Donald Trump eventually exists, I hate to say it, but when Donald Trump is no longer here, let's put it that way, the MAGA movement is going to realize they hitched their wagon to a political chameleon, a slick liar who changed his colors so many times that in the end, there was no real substance left under that suit. Ever since Donald Trump has went into office, things have went downhill. And Vance represents the going down that hill. Okay? Going down that hill. Okay? We don't care about the borders, goofy looking glass, goofy. That's the least of our problems. Going that us having a safe border is the least of our problems. And only a goofy would say we got secure borders when we can't even afford nothing inside the country. Okay? We can't afford nothing inside the country. We at war when we ain't supposed to be at war. Our fucking economy is down the shitter. And you talking about secure border. Don't nobody give a fuck about no secure borders, and we can't afford to buy nothing. We can't afford to fix our roads. We can't afford health care. We can't afford college or kids getting free food, free lunch. We can't afford shit. Okay? And you talking about secure borders. Don't nobody give a fuck about secure borders when you can't do nothing within the borders. Just dumb. Just dumb. We had a war. Now, in order to get out of the war, we're going to lose the war. We're losing the war. We done lost the war. We got to pay them people to go away. Goofy talking about we got secure borders and we got to pay these people. We got to pay these damn people not to go to war. Now we got to pay Iran. Just dumb. Just dumb. Our borders are secure. Now we got to pay these people. We got to pay these Iranian people $50 billion. Are you dumb? Are you high? That's crazy. No, I think MAGA's the one that's brain dead. I think you guys are brain dead. Okay? So he's a chameleon. We see exactly who JD Vance is. Nobody's voting for JD Vance. Prices are not lower. Inflation is not lower. None of that is lower. Stop lying. You see how we have alternative facts and everybody lives in this goofy Neverland? Are you crazy? Do you understand how our economy has been damaged? Do you understand? Do you understand we got to pay Iran money just to get out of this war? Do you understand that means we're losing? Are you nuts, Jerry? Are you nuts? Are you nuts? That means we lost. Goofy. Man, y'all just be saying stuff. That's not a win. So look, at the end of the day, this isn't really about JD Vance. I know that's going to sound strange as he's spending all his time talking about JD Vance, okay? But hear me out. This is really about something bigger than JD Vance. It's about what happens when a political movement starts believing its own presses. They believe their own presses, okay? It's about what happens when a movement gets so comfortable talking to itself that it stops listening to anybody else. Okay? Because that's what I think we're watching right now. I think MAGA has spent so much time convincing itself that JD Vance is the future that it has stopped asking whether the rest of the country agrees with him. No, the next president is not going to be Republican. Y'all going to be cast to the wilderness for the bullshit that Donald Trump did for these past 2 years. Y'all going to be cast to the wilderness. That's wild. This is a dangerous place for any political movement to find itself in, where you think you're winning when you're really denigrating and you're really pulling the country down into the gutter. Now we got to pay Iran money. Now we got to pay Iran money. Where does that mean? Goofy Stewart. Goofy Stewart. It wasn't our money. It was their money. Goofy Stewart. Do some research. Just do some research. Why y'all be on here spouting stuff y'all don't know nothing about? Obama didn't give nobody money. It was their money. that we owed them, goofy, from years ago. We owed Iran money, goofy. Go look it up. Stop spouting facts that you don't know. Just be talking. Don't know nothing. Because the truth is, America is not a MAGA rally, okay? America is not conservative media. America is not social media. America is not made up entirely of people who already agree with JD Vance. Yes, it was goofy. We've heard this story all over the internet. You're just too dumb to go research it. Okay? We owed them money. This was money we owed them. Obama just gave them their money back. Goofy, go research it. Stop talking to me. Get off the internet and go research. Stop talking if you don't know what you're talking about, okay? So it's a whole lot bigger than that. It's black folks in Atlanta trying to make ends meet, Latinos trying to make ends meet, people trying to make ends meet. It's suburban moms in Pennsylvania trying to take their kids to decent school. It's all kinds of things. We have real problems in this country. It's older people wondering if their retirement is going to be enough. That's the America. And if you want to be president, like JD Vance does, you got to be able to speak to all of these people. Black people, Hispanic people, white people, you got to be able to talk to all of them. A lot of people got really, really turned off when JD Vance got on TV talking about, I don't want to apologize to be white. That victim mentality bullshit that he pulled out of his back pocket. That victim mentality stuff. Okay? Stuart, I don't want to talk to you. You're an idiot because you don't know how to go read and research. I don't talk to idiots. Okay? This is America. So he has to learn how to talk to other Americans. That's why I keep coming back to the same conclusion. I don't think JD Vance has proven he's unelectable. I don't think he's proven he's inevitable either. What I think is that MAGA has already decided the verdict before the trial has started. They've already convinced themselves that because they love him, the country will love JD Vance too. Nobody loves JD Vance. Everybody can see the fake JD Vance. Everybody can see the fake JD Vance. Okay? Nobody's going to love JD Vance either. It's a lie. That's a MAGA lie. That's the MAGA lie. The assumption that popularity inside a movement automatically becomes popularity with America. The assumption that loyalty equals electability is not the case. Okay? Yeah, sure, he kicked their ass. Sure, he did. The assumption that because somebody can win applause from the base, they can win the White House. That's not how that works. JD Vance is not Donald Trump. Y'all better understand that quickly. JD Vance is not Donald Trump. Maybe JD Vance will prove me wrong someday. Politics has surprised me before. But right now, when I look at JD Vance, I don't see a politician who has expanded his coalition. I think he alienated a lot of Hispanics. He alienated a lot of blacks. He alienated a lot of the independents. The coalition and the tent for MAGAs is getting smaller and smaller. I'm sorry, it just is. Okay? It just is. I don't see a politician who has convinced people who disagree with him to take a second look. What I see is a politician who is very popular with people who were already going to vote Republican. And that's not the same thing, because eventually every politician has to leave the comfort of their own supporters and make their case to the rest of the country. And I don't think JD Vance can do that because JD Vance is so fake. He is so fake and so phony. Everything about his life is fake and so funny. Okay? And until JD Vance proves he can do that, I think MAGA is confusing that hope with reality. Okay? And those are two very, very different things. JD Vance is not trying to expand his electorate. Him coming on The View is him trying to change his image. He didn't change his image with the Democrats. Okay? He hasn't checked. That's the problem, Jerry. That's the problem. You seem to think that it's the Democrats' fault the way this country, the Republicans, for the past 2-3 years, the Republicans have put us on this destructive path. Not Democrats, Republicans. Go talk to your Republican representatives. Don't talk about Democrats. Talk about your Republican representatives. Talk to them and ask them what they doing for the country. Are they trying to turn the country around? Y'all love to say, Biden did it. Biden did it. Biden ain't had nothing to do with the past 2 years. Biden had nothing to do with the past 2 years. And that's all you hear is y'all talking about Biden did it. Biden did it. Biden ain't got nothing to do with this. This is this shitty, destructive path that we on. This is what the Republicans put us on. Okay? This is the path that the Republicans have put us on. Okay? So you need to go talk to your Republican representatives. You need to go talk to them and speak to them as to why they put us in this position. Why they Republicans put us in this position where we got to defend the war, where we got to pay Iran. Why we got to pay Iran money. And they get to gatekeep the Strait of Hormuz. Make this shit make sense. We lose, we done lost all the way across the board. All the way across the board. Okay? No, it'll take us years to get out of the mess that this president got us into the Middle East. It'll take years to get us out of that mess that this president has put us in. Okay? And that's our problem. We have people like this. We have people like this that have got one brain cell who don't seem to understand that we lost that war. Okay? Yeah, sure, you're going to win the midterm. Sure you are. Sure you are, Looking Glass. Sure you are. Okay? Sure you are. I look forward to you guys winning. Okay? I look forward to you guys. Of course, Christopher Retard. Of course, Christopher Retard. We understand that he's been in the office for 2 years. We understand, Retard. We understand that. If you like my commentary, if you don't like my commentary, yeah, he didn't pay. That's I can't. Obama didn't pay Iran. Obama gave Iran their money back. How many times do we have to keep saying Obama didn't give Iran any money? We gave Iran their money back. Just dumb. Just dumb. Just dumb. So, if you like my commentary or if you don't like my commentary, hit the like, share, and subscribe. I'll be back tomorrow with more content. And some of y'all need to study and read. The best economies that America have had have been under the direction of Democrats. The best economy that this country has had in the last 40 years has been under the Democrats. It's just a fact. Just a fact. If any of y'all are honest brokers, you would go and find out. Obama didn't give Iran any money. He gave them back their money. I know it's a lie. It's only a lie to goofy people who don't study. But I will be back tomorrow. I will be back tomorrow because you goofies will believe whatever somebody says. Instead of checking the facts. That's all you got to do is read. Find out the facts. I will see you tomorrow. And I appreciate all of y'all showing up. I appreciate all of y'all. Even the goofy people. I appreciate you goofy people.